Welcome to the Clear to Send podcast, a podcast about wireless engineering, where we educate you on Wi-Fi technology, talk about design tips, troubleshooting, interviews, and the tools. Here are your hosts, Roel and François.
This episode is proudly sponsored by MetaGeek. For more than a decade, network professionals have used MetaGeek Wi-Fi tools to deploy, maintain, and troubleshoot wireless networks. Visit metageek.com/CTS for Clear to Send and use the code CTS10 at checkout for 10% off your purchase of MetaGeek brand hardware and software. Hey everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Send podcast. I am Roel, your host, and I am joined by our co-host, François. How are you?
I'm very good, Roel. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's early morning for me and I guess mid-morning for you on this lovely weekend. It's not quite winter here on the West Coast. Is it snowing where you're at?
Yeah, we got our first snow this week, so we actually have some snow on the floor.
Nice. Yeah, I'm hoping to see some snow this winter. Bring my kids up there to the mountains. We don't get snow in San Jose, but if we just drive out a couple hours, we're going to hit some snow somewhere. So hopefully we get that later this month. Not quite the Toronto snow or the Canada snow, which is good.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm ready for that.
Snow is okay. Cold is a little bit harder to live with. I don't mind the snow. It's beautiful, right?
Yeah, it's definitely beautiful. I love seeing snow, just not seeing that the hard snow that just falls into your face and chills your spine. That's not the snow I look forward to. But when you are snowed in, I guess we can talk about this topic we're going to discuss. When you're snowed in, you could study for a certification. So we're talking about certifications on this episode, and specifically, we're going to go into CCNP Wireless, which you have some experience in, François.
Yes, I'm actually currently studying for the different exams. I have passed 3 of them so far, and I have my last exam scheduled for this week. I'm also attending one of the training boot camp for CCNP Wireless. So we thought we would just share our own experience, give you guys some tips into how to study for this specific certification. And just try to orient you in the right directions and into the right documentations, because there is no actual study guides for CCNP Wireless. You cannot go on Amazon and buy the study guide.
So there's no book at all for any of these exams?
No, but we have plenty of documentations online, Cisco documentations. Also, we have other resources, self-learning, e-learning classes, or you could also attend the official Cisco training. And when you attend the Cisco official training, you get access to the study guide, which is very detailed. So you get a whole bunch of different information.
Oh, I see. So they're hiding the study guide from us, and you got to purchase training from them to get that study guide.
Not too sure. I don't want to get into that. It's probably a money question. It always is. But I probably didn't want to put the effort into developing a guide or something. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, maybe the audience is not quite there, like your CCNA route and switch. But at least the documents are all out there available to read if you can find them, and you're going to help us get to these documents, right?
Yeah, so today we can talk about a few tips onto how to study for CCNP Wireless if you don't have access to the different products, or if your employer is not sponsoring your training. We still have some ways to study for the CCNP program without spending a lot of money.
Because you are going to spend some money up front doing these exams, because how many exams are part of the CCNP Wireless?
So you need to pass 4 exams in order to get the CCNP Wireless certification. The first one is around Wi-Fi design. Second one is around Wi-Fi deployment. So deploying Cisco Wireless enterprise networks. The third one is securing Cisco wireless, enterprise network, and the last one is troubleshooting, right? So you have design, deploy, troubleshoot, and secure.
Wow.
And each of them will cost $300.
Yeah,
right?
that's quite a lot for 4 exams total. So you're looking at $1,200 just taking the exam, sitting in.
Yeah, so that's the money you have to spend no matter what, right? So if you want to pass the exam, you need to spend $300. So it's going to be $1,200 if you want to. You're looking at $1,200 minimum. All
right. And how many questions are in each of these exams, and how much time do you get when you sit in on these each of these exams, François?
So depending on the exam, I think it's between 55 and 60 questions. I can't remember quite, but I think I got 57 questions on one, 60 question on the other one, 54, I think on the third one I did. And then you get 110 minutes.
Okay.
To complete the questions. So you have time. The mix of questions, depending on the exam, you can have, typical questions with multiple answer. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have some lab questions. So you have access to virtual equipment and you get to click, on the controller, click on the different configurations. You can validate some configurations. They put you in a little scenario and then they ask you questions. We have this, it's not working. Can you tell by looking at the configurations what's going on? And then you get to answer the different questions.
Okay, so I think a popular question then will be, do you need equipment to pass these exams? Do I need access to a controller, a wireless controller to pass these exams?
I would say yes. Well, you can always study by reading,
Yeah, you can only get so far with reading.
Yeah, it's easier to learn if you practice, right? So it's easier to just try to get access to Cisco controller and Cisco AP. I would say that's a minimum you need if you want to practice for these exams. If you don't have access to a Cisco controller at work or in your lab at home, you can download a virtual wireless LAN controller for free, right? And it would be like a virtual machine, an OVA file that you can load onto a server if you have a virtual server at home, and you can use that as a wireless controller. I think it comes with a 60-day evaluation license. Mm-hmm. So you can use that for free in your lab at home. And if you don't have an AP, a Cisco AP, you can buy.
You can get them fairly inexpensive
AP on eBay.
Yeah, do you think a 3500 will do?
Yeah, 3500 is good because it's cheap because it's old, and also it supports clean air and all of the different Cisco features. Right, so you'll be able to play around with it and test it in the lab.
Okay, so you have your equipment. You were able to get access to the APs or NAP. Maybe you got access to a controller. How do you begin studying for the exams? Is there a specific one you should study for first? Do you take them in order by the numbers?
Yeah.
What did you do, François?
What I did is I started by design, right? It made more sense to me to start by design. And the design exam is the one that's less Cisco specific, I would say. Right? So it's more around like general design concept, wireless design concept. So if you're already familiar with Wi-Fi, if you took the CW&P exams, like I did, I started by CW&P exam first. So I had like general ideas about, how to design Wi-Fi, how Wi-Fi worked and everything. So design was, I would guess like the easier one for me. So I just wanted to, get it done and get it out of the way. Mm-hmm. So Wi-Fi design is the first one I took. After that, I took the T-shoot, the troubleshoot. I don't know why I took this one second. I think it was the hardest one. I failed it for the first time and I passed it the second time. So I would keep the T-shoot for the end actually. And probably do deploy as a second. So design, deploy, do secure and then the cheat sheet at the end.
Okay. Do you think having your CWNP certifications gives you an advantage in the CCNP wireless exams?
Yes. A lot of questions are just Wi-Fi questions, so they're just going to appear very easy to you. Okay. Like channel planning questions, interference questions, all of this, basic Wi-Fi questions will just appear obvious to you.
I would say to me, it seems logical to take your CWNP certifications first, because then that gives you the foundation of wireless, which you can take into CCNP wireless and knock out those wireless fundamentals, those wireless basics, and then you could focus strictly on the Cisco specific questions or topics.
Yes. Exactly. So that's what I did. I had to focus a lot on the Cisco specific questions. But all the basic Wi-Fi knowledge, I already had it. So you're just building on top of that, right? And then you're trying to learn different Cisco technologies, how Cisco implement different features, the different vocabulary that Cisco uses. A typical example would be, band select for band steering, or different example of Cisco vocabulary, AP groups, RF profiles, all of this stuff.
I see. So like the Cisco specific language, their specific terms for different technologies is like the example you just gave for band select.
Yeah, it's important for the exam because they might just they take it for granted that you know all of this stuff. So some of the answers will just include the Cisco vocab. So you need to know about it if you want to be able to understand the question and the answers.
Okay. So let's say you pick an exam for example, design. That's the exam that I want to take. Where do you start from there? What do you do first? So
for me, it was a little bit different because I had access to the instructor material.
Okay.
Right. Earlier this year, I got the Cisco instructor certification, which gives you access to all of the different courses. So I used that to study, right? So I had the slide and the student guide so I could study. But if you don't have access to that, and most of people won't have access to that, what you can do, you can look at the exam topics, right? We're going to put a link in the show notes, but you can have access to all of the different exam topics, and then you can just they also give you access to a list of material you can use to study. So it's a combination of Cisco design documents, Cisco sometimes it's material like marketing material, but I use that, and I also use the Cisco forum, support forum. You have some good articles on that website that goes a little bit deeper into some technologies. And what I did for myself is that I created a study book of every technologies or every subject I wasn't fully comfortable with, and then I would just study them and then create some notes.
And what did you use for your notes? Did you write them out? Did you use something like Evernote, and so you can read them anywhere?
I used iPad application called Noteshelf.
Okay.
Because you can just write.
Use the
if
pen.
You have an iPad with a pen, you can just write down your notes. The note application I use is called Bear. It's only iOS and Mac compatible, but I can sync it between my Mac and my iPad as well. So I use a combination of Bear and Noteshelf.
Okay.
So I do my notes, and then I review the notes before the exams just to make sure I understood them. And then if you have the luxury to have a lab, you can also implement these different concepts if you want to, or if you need to. If we're talking about the design class, a lot of it is designing Wi-Fi. So, and they base their design on Ekahau. So if you have Ekahau, you can do some testing. You can do your own lab design, predictive surveys. You can get a floor plan from Google and try to do it, try to practice on your own using Ekahau.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can get a trial of Ekahau as well to get more familiar with that process.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that's what I would do. I would just look at the exam topics, create a study book or study your own study book, and then go on. In order to get more information about a specific subject, you go read the different, design documents, Cisco design documents, or the support article, the admin guides, and then you get the information you need, and you put all of that into your study book. So you can, harden all of the topics you're not, strong at.
Okay. And did you organize all of those articles in your that app you're using on your iPad, your note shelf, or do you just have like a document that has all the links to very specific topics within the objectives of each exam?
No, I would do. I'm not super good at organizing my notes, but I would have like one note for each exam. So like one note for Y design, and then I would put all of my stuff on the one note. Sometimes I would document the URL. Sometimes I wouldn't, depending on.
Yeah, it just depends on how comfortable you are with configuration, right? So if there's something that's challenging, you may want to link out to the configuration guide, for example, of how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. If it's something you want to share with other people too, you could organize it a little bit better and, send it to other people.
Okay. Yeah. So what you're saying is you keep all these to yourself. You don't share it, is what you're saying.
I guess for this one, that's how I did it.
All right. So let's say you've organized the material. Now you're looking at using the material and the equipment. What are some of the example labs that you've done with the resources you've had, and what kind of configurations have you practiced?
So in my case, I was very fortunate because I got to attend a boot camp, a CCNP boot camp, a CCNP Wireless boot camp organized by a Wi-Fi training, and it was 11 days of Cisco training on CCNP Wireless, right? So you get all of the different trainings: design, deploy, T-shoot, and secure in 11 days, and we got access to labs, to Cisco ICE, Cisco Prime controllers, and all of that, right? So I got to use the official labs.
And it came with the lab books as well, so they had all the steps that you needed to do to run specific configurations?
Yes.
Nice. This episode is proudly sponsored by Channelizer and WiSpy DBX, the professional spectrum analysis toolkit from MetaGeek. If you're a professional in wireless networking, you know that the most frustrating Wi-Fi problems are the ones you can't see. Trying to diagnose Wi-Fi problems without having a clear picture of your environment is nearly impossible. Channelizer and WiSpy are purpose-built to give you that clear picture. WiSpy scans both the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz bands, and Channelizer will visualize that data for you to show you Wi-Fi and non-Wi-Fi interference that's plaguing your network. If you need to quickly identify and eliminate interference in any wireless environment, from small business to enterprise networks, Channelizer and WiSpy DBX will help you get this job done. To thank you, the listeners of Clear to Send, MetaGeek is offering a limited time 10% discount to all of you. Visit metageek.com/CTS and use the code CTS10 at checkout for 10% off your purchase of any Channelizer and WiSpy DBX bundle.
Which is very good, even if you don't want to pass the exam, you have examples of setting up a guest Wi-Fi using ICE, setting up BYOD using ICE, a whole bunch of different stuff that you could actually use in the real life. So I really like the different labs. But at home, I have a little Cisco controller and a couple of APs. So what I would do if I were to study, for the exams, I think you could do a couple of easy labs, maybe, get familiar with configuring interfaces, network interfaces, dynamic interfaces onto your controller, maybe configure a couple of interface groups, get familiar with AP groups, RF profiles. I work with a lot of customers, and every time I look at their wireless controller, Cisco wireless controller config, there's no AP group, no RF profiles. So I educate a lot of my customers on that. But that's easy to work with and to to test in the lab. I would also configure different SSID configurations, WPA personal, WPA with 802.1x, maybe an open with a captive portal. Use a built-in captive portal in the controller. You can use a built-in authentication, user authentication in the controller, Leap. If you don't have ICE, if you don't have ICE server, you can always set up a free radius server in order to test your 802.1x authentication. You can download that for free. You can set it up on a Unix box or on a Raspberry Pi, on a Kali Linux.
Yeah. And you've written something about that as well on your blog. So maybe we can link out to that if somebody's trying to do the same kind of lab.
Yeah, you could set up a free radius on a Unix computer in 1 hour.
Nice.
So it's not too complicated. Not even like if you're familiar with Unix and such, you can even do it faster. So if you have that, if you have one controller, one AP, and maybe a free radius server, you could do a whole bunch of stuff.
For the CCNP Wireless, is it important to try to understand an environment where there's multiple controllers when you're trying to simulate failover or roaming between controllers?
Yeah. So the CCNP Wireless program covers environments, large environments with multiple controllers. So they talk about controllers in between, roaming in between controllers, layer 3 roaming, mobility domain, all of these different concepts. But that's something that's very hard to lab.
Yeah.
All right. If you attend the training, the official Cisco training, you will have access to different controllers, so you can test how it works. But you will definitely have questions on that during the exam. So it's important to know how different controllers work together. When they're part of the same domain, how does the roaming works? How do you bring different controllers onto the same domain? All of these different topics are important to understand. Yeah.
Okay. So
it's just hard to lab if you just want to build your own lab at home, right?
Right. Yeah. It becomes pretty expensive at that point. But when you're putting together your material, you get so far with building your own material, and on a self-study, there are other ways to get this information that you need to learn, to understand, and to troubleshoot, and even get some lab time in there. What are some of the other ways you've found to study for the CCNP Wireless?
Well, I would say the best way, if you have the money or if you get sponsored by your employer, would be to attend the official training, right? So you look for a Cisco partner, a Cisco Learning partner, and you try to attend the training. Sometimes that would be, in person. Sometimes that would be online, remote training. And so that's what I did with WiFiTraining.com.
Okay.
And so you could attend each individual class. So they have one class for Y design, one class for Y deploy, and so on. Or you could attend like a boot camp that would just cover the 4 different classes in 2 weeks. And you get access to labs, the official labs from Cisco. You get access to the student guide, student guide is very good. It's basically the slides from the instructor, right? Mm-hmm. And on top of the slides, it gives you notes on additional information about the slide, and it goes deeper into each subject, right? So if you want to drill down, if you want to study the different subjects, you can using the student guide.
Awesome.
So that's one option. And if you have Cisco Learning credits, you can use that to purchase the training.
Okay,
that's good to know. I know some
can't forget about Cisco Learning credits.
Yeah, and they don't know what to do with them. You can just ask your boss, if he has any, and then try to use them to attend the training.
Okay. Yeah, I've used it
and
once
the other way
before.
would be e-learning solution. right? So Cisco if you go to their Cisco Learning Network store, you can purchase e-learning. So it's a set of videos, a set of labs that you can have access to online, and you can just self-study at your own pace. You can watch videos introducing you all of the different topics, and then they have virtual labs that you can take online. And you have access to a free trial if you want to test it out. And then if you purchase it, you have access to it for a year, right? So you have a year to study your different training, and it costs $750. And once again, you can apply your Cisco Learning credits to it.
Okay. What else would you recommend for somebody? Like, what are some of your final tips for somebody studying for the CCNP Wireless? Because it looks daunting at first as you're looking at the objectives and you realize there's no book. You've laid out some good direction on where somebody should go. What are some of your other tips? Maybe a couple of tips during the exam, your top 3 tips for when you're in front of that computer, you're taking the exam. What kind of notes should somebody write down before starting, that kind of thing?
What has helped me is definitely CWNP program, and I had all of the foundations covered, so that had helped me a lot. Also, all of the Cisco experience I had over the years with my customers helped me a lot. The Cisco forum helped me a lot too, because you usually get deeper. In some articles you get a deeper understanding of some subjects. And then in terms of, during the exam, everyone is different. I think it's personal. Some people are good at it. Some other people, it's a little harder. But I guess just try to stay focused. So what I try to do is, I don't look at the top right corner very often. Because if I start to count down the questions number, I start to get to lose my concentration.
Right. Yeah. Stresses you out a bit.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, when you're climbing a mountain, you look at your feet and you focus on one step at a time. And then before you know it, you're on top of the mountain. If you look at the top of the mountain while you walk, it's much harder, right? So it's kind of like the same for me when I do an exam. I just take one question at a time. And before you know it, it's the end of the exam. So
awesome. Well, that's some great tips.
It's personal. Once again, everyone is different, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And also, if you're learning this, it's also good to blog about it if you can. It helps reinforce that knowledge back into what you've learned. And that way you can teach others, because I feel like if you teach others how to do something, you have already mastered it yourself. So I think that's a great way to learn.
For sure. Yeah, and sometimes when you teach other, you just realize how much you know and what you know and what you don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you study alone, sometimes you're like, oh, it's okay. You think you master everything, or you think you don't know anything, but you don't really realize. But if you teach it to other people, you're like, okay, I think I got this covered.
Yeah.
And
because you can explain it.
Surprise yourself. I didn't think I knew that much about this subject, but oh man, I don't know anything about that subject. So it can help you to refine your knowledge.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Francois, for sharing your experience with taking these exams. Good luck on that final exam that you're taking. Hopefully,
Thank you.
We'll hear some good news later on this week. And for anybody else who wants to learn more about what François is doing, where can they find you, François?
So people can reach me online on Twitter at Verges François, just my last name and my first name. Actually, someone sent me a private message this week and asked me about, the exam and how I studied. So I told him, look out for the next Clear to Send episode. We'll give some tips about that. So yeah, don't hesitate to send me a little message. And and I also have my company website and blog at semfionetworks.com/blog if you want to get more information. I did couple articles on Cisco stuff. Also did an article on how to set up FreeRadius on a Kali Linux server on a VM machine on your laptop. So if you wanna use that for your labs, you can do that as well.
Awesome. And you can find more information about the links that François has mentioned over at cleartosend.net/97. And I want to thank you guys for listening. Appreciate all the input that people have given to us. If you haven't already, head over to iTunes, leave us a review, let us know what you think. Rate us a 5-star if we're doing great. But other than that, the show couldn't be made without you guys. So we really appreciate it. And François, you got any last words for these guys?
No, thank you very much. We're finishing the year pretty strong, right? Maybe 100 episodes before the end of the year.
Yeah, hopefully.
And we'll start next year with a brand new series of episodes.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Well, thank you guys for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.
See you guys.